Welcome back, everybody, to the Tennessee Titans franchise here on Madden 23. Today we have a pretty big episode as we have made it to the 2024 NFL Draft. And this is going to be a really fun episode for a variety of reasons. We're going to be drafting some of these young players to hopefully become future stars within our organization. And I'm also really excited to see how the rest of the league's landscape will change. We've been following all of these players in the NCAA Next Up Dynasty, so we know how their college careers have gone, and it'll be really fun to see where they end up getting drafted into the NFL. So today's episode is sort of a culmination of the last two seasons of the NCAA Next Up series, while also being able to draft players for our Titans. We have 2 picks in the first round and 2 in the second round, so we have a really good opportunity to add some great young talent to the organization. We have a good young nucleus of players already, but it certainly does not hurt to add more talent, and there aren't many positions that I would say are off limits. We also don't have many major holes, so we have the luxury of really focusing on going with the best player available whenever we are on the clock. If you would like to download this draft class and you're on the PS5, you can type in Titans Draft 2, or you can search up my PSN where you'll see both draft classes from this series so far, and you'll be able to add these draft classes into your franchises as well. Again, I'm pretty sure this is only PS5 exclusive, so if you're not on the PlayStation 5, I'm sorry. Let's get this started. The Minnesota Vikings are on the clock, and this is a very fascinating pick because for most of the year, we had Clemson quarterback Cade Hutchinson penciled in as the number 1 pick. With his struggles in the national championship game, maybe the Vikings go for a different player such as Jameer Jefferson. So with the first pick, the Minnesota Vikings select Cade Hutchinson, quarterback out of Clemson. So despite a bad performance in the national championship game, Cade Hutchinson will be the new quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. Hutchinson's been dominant this year. He won the Heisman Trophy. He led Clemson to an undefeated regular season. But unfortunately, he played very poorly against TCU in the national title game, throwing 3 interceptions, being one of the main reasons why Clemson lost. Nonetheless, I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. He's extremely polished. He's extremely pro-ready, and I do think the ceiling is really high. So hopefully Cade Hutchinson can be the guy to push the Minnesota Vikings over the hump going forward. And he'll join a division that already includes last year's number 1 pick, Clyde Williamson, who had a historically good rookie season for the Detroit Lions. With the second pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Jameer Jefferson Jr., defensive back out of Ohio State. This is a no-brainer. He's the best football player in this draft, a true generational talent at the cornerback position with his ball skills, coverage, athleticism, and his ability in the run game. The Cardinals need a corner, and he'll probably be the best one on their roster right away. So a no-brainer choice for Arizona. The Miami Dolphins select Devin Banks, the linebacker out of Auburn. Banks is a little bit of a tweener. He's 6'2", 251 pounds. Highly productive player in college, but I'm not really sure how the Dolphins are going to use him at the next level, whether it's going to be mainly off the ball or as an edge rusher. So Miami's going to have to figure that out, but nonetheless, he is a very, very talented player. The New York Giants select Gilbert Smith, pass rusher out of Oklahoma. I did not think Gilbert Smith was going to go in the top 5, but I don't have any problems with this pick for the Giants at all. He's the best edge rusher in this draft class and will be a huge addition to their defense. Highly productive player at Oklahoma, and I think the ceiling with him is very high, and he's already a 79 overall. That'll bring us to the Colts, one of our division rivals, and they select quarterback Bartholomew Blount out of Michigan. Welcome to the AFC South, young man. Bartholomew Blount has been a great player for Michigan over these last couple of seasons, leading them to the college football playoff 2 years in a row. I think the ceiling with him is unbelievably high, and he's going to most likely be the Colts' day 1 starting quarterback. They've had a QB carousel over the last 5 years, and they now finally have their franchise guy. That'll bring up another rival, the Houston Texans, who have 2 picks in the top 9. This one at number 6 overall. They're going to select offensive tackle Kalen Funtz out of Florida. I thought this could have been a quarterback landing spot. Maybe they could have considered a guy like Kane Sanders, but ultimately they're going to get some reinforcements on the offensive line, and they now have a great tackle duo with Funtz at right tackle and Laramie Tunsil on the left side. That'll bring up the Chicago Bears with the number 7 overall pick. They acquired Chris Godwin recently, and they're going to give Justin Fields some more help with offensive guard Magnus Zimmerman out of Notre Dame. One of the best pure football players in the draft as he comes in as an 81 overall. Guard doesn't necessarily have positional value, but if you can build up a good offensive line for your young quarterback, then it doesn't matter what position these guys play. The Las Vegas Raiders are on the board now with the 8th pick, and they select Athanase Gothero, the safety out of Ball State. I think Gothero was the best defensive back in the country this past season, and he becomes the first Ball State first-round pick in the modern era, and he's not just going in the first round, he's going in the top 10. Very solid pick here by the Raiders. I think he's going to be a great addition to their defense. The Texans are back on the clock, and they select quarterback Kane Sanders out of Houston. I really like this pick for the Texans. Kane Sanders is a local kid. He played his college ball at Houston, and now will be playing his professional ball in Houston with the Texans. Sanders came out of nowhere this season, finishing in second place for the Heisman Trophy, leading the Houston Cougars to the college football playoff, and he's not going to have to travel too far, staying in the H-Town, as he will likely be the starting quarterback of the Texans. So the AFC South now has 2 new rookie quarterbacks, and not to mention, Bryce Berry III is now a Jacksonville Jaguar. Our division rivals have done quite well for themselves so far. Trevor Lawrence just got himself a great weapon with Bryce Berry out of Oklahoma, who only has normal development, but he's already a 79 overall. The Carolina Panthers are up next, and they select Hercules Oceanis, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I'm not entirely sure what Derek Brown's future is here in Carolina. They did give him the 5th-year option, but with him being a free agent, maybe they don't want to pay him, or maybe they want to have him and Oceanis work alongside each other. That'll bring up the Washington Commanders, another possible QB-needy team, and they don't pick a quarterback. Instead, they go with a corner, Shad Swisher out of Georgia. He's 6'5", very athletic, very long, rangy kid with very long wingspan. I've got to assume the Commanders are going to look to draft a quarterback at some point. I don't think they want another year of Marcus Mariota at the helm, but they're not going to do it here in the first round. That'll bring up the Eagles here at 13, but not for long. So this is a 2-part trade. The first part is that the Rams are trading away Jalen Ramsey to the Detroit Lions. The Lions are hosting the NFL draft this year, so you'd think they'd want a first-round pick, but I think Jalen Ramsey will be more than a good enough substitute. The Rams are trading away Jalen Ramsey and a 3rd in exchange for the 29th pick, Jeff Okudah, and a 5th. The Lions are going all in on their young quarterback, Clyde Williamson, and the Rams are using that additional cap space to move up with the Eagles to the 13th pick. They're going to be giving up picks 29, 57, along with a future 3rd. That's a lot, but it looks like they're trying to jump their rivals, the Seahawks, in order to trade up and draft a quarterback. The Rams do not have a lot of draft picks of value coming up in the next 2 years. Their defense is a train wreck other than Aaron Donald and Jeffrey Simmons, but it's still a really good landing spot for a rookie quarterback, and that player is Isaiah Gordon out of Kentucky. So the 4th quarterback is off the board. The Rams make a blockbuster trade to jump Seattle and get their guy. And if you're Isaiah Gordon, you've got to be ecstatic. He gets to play for Los Angeles, a huge market, being coached by Sean McVay, one of the best offensive minds in football, and he gets to throw to Cooper Kupp and Mike Evans. That is a quarterback's dream. So Seattle, who was going to pick Gordon, now has to settle for Latrell McAllister, the tight end out of Clemson. Still a really, really good pick as he comes in as an 80 overall, but Seattle's kind of panicking a little bit at quarterback. The only guy they've got on their roster currently is Sam Darnold, so you'd think, like Washington, they're probably going to draft a quarterback at some point during the draft. They really wanted Isaiah Gordon, but instead, he goes to their rivals. The Green Bay Packers select Logan Capley, offensive tackle out of the University of Alabama. The redshirt sophomore comes in as a 73 overall with hidden development. With David Bakhtiari getting a little bit older, I think Logan Capley can eventually move over to the left side and be the Packers' left tackle of the future, protecting the blind side of quarterback Genesis Moon. Another tackle is off the board. It's Omar Irons out of Cal going to the Bills. Again, it never hurts to improve the offensive line. Omar Irons is somebody who I think can start right away for Buffalo and provide more protection for Josh Allen and company. The Bills' in-state foes, the New York Jets, will pick a tackle of their own, Angelo Nix out of Minnesota. I'm surprised Nix was the 5th offensive lineman off the board. I think he should have gone a little bit sooner than that. But the New York Jets certainly don't mind, as they hope Nix can be the left tackle of the future for Zach Wilson or whoever the franchise quarterback ends up being. That'll bring up the Baltimore Ravens here at 18, and they're going to select wide receiver Romeo Gardner out of Mississippi State. Gardner had a huge senior season, cementing himself as a first-round pick and possibly the wide receiver 1 of the future for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, as they hope Gardner and Rashad Bateman can be a really nice 1-2 punch for the future. That'll bring up the New Orleans Saints here with the 19th pick, and they select Adai Awar, pass rusher out of Notre Dame. Awar comes in only as a 72 overall, but with hidden development. With Cameron Jordan starting to get older and nearing retirement, they want to get a replacement. And I think physically, Adai Awar has some similarities to Cameron Jordan, so they're hoping that he can be the guy who ultimately steps up and takes over his role. The Bengals select Udo Afolabe, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, 6'7", 377. This is a large mammoth of a human being. Him and DJ Reader next to each other is going to cause problems for opposing offenses in the run game. So I think this is a really solid pick for the Bengals. The Atlanta Falcons pick a quarterback, Sidney McDonald out of Auburn. So he will most likely be the starting quarterback, despite the fact that Desmond Ridder led them to the playoffs last year. Does this mean Ridder is on the trade block for a team like Washington or Seattle to possibly scoop him up? McDonald is one of the best pure passers in this draft. He's got a fantastic arm and will be the man in Atlanta running the show. The Los Angeles Chargers select I.T. Thomas, safety out of Texas. Thomas is a very athletic player. Pair him up with Derwin James in the Chargers secondary. Sheesh, look out. That's a really nice duo. Both of Tennessee's picks are very close, just a few picks away, starting with the Buccaneers, and they select Josiah Wake, the pass rusher out of Texas, who comes in as a 79 overall. Wake has underperformed since his dominant sophomore season a couple years ago, but clearly that might have just been Texas misusing him because he is a stud. The Bucs are another QB-needy team who likely will take one within the coming rounds. One pick away, it's the New England Patriots, and they select Jamison Anderson, a cornerback out of Missouri. He's tall, he's athletic, he's got long arms, and he's really good in man coverage. This literally screams Bill Belichick in a nutshell. Jamison Anderson was born to play in the secondary for the New England Patriots, so this pick really should not be a surprise to anyone. That'll bring up the Titans here at 25, who have 2 of the next 3 picks and a lot of good players on the board to choose from. Plenty of offensive skill position players. No running backs have gone yet. Only 2 receivers are off the board and only 1 tight end. There's plenty of talent on the offensive and defensive lines as well, so there's a lot of different routes that the Titans could choose to go here. Well, they're not going to pick anybody. They're going to move down. The Titans are trading away picks 25 and 123 to the Minnesota Vikings for picks 33, 65, and a future 7th. So we're moving down 8 spots and turning a late 4th into an early 3rd. Keep in mind the Vikings do have the 31st overall pick, so they now have 3 first-rounders in this draft as they select Kenneth Scott, the guard out of Georgia. This is a really good move for the Vikings, getting a blue-chip level offensive lineman. They need to get guys to block for Cade Hutchinson, and they need to get guys for Cade Hutchinson to throw the ball to. Kenneth Scott is one of the best pure football players in this draft, so I think this trade is going to be a win-win. So that'll bring up the Denver Broncos here at 26. Again, only 1 spot away from us, and they select quarterback DeAndre Smith out of Mississippi State. So this marks just the 2nd time in NFL history where 6 quarterbacks have gone off the board in the first round. The only other time that happened, the 1983 NFL Draft, regarded as the best quarterback class in history, with guys like John Elway, Jim Kelly, and Dan Marino going in the first round. So this class obviously has some big footsteps to follow. DeAndre Smith had a fantastic season this year for Mississippi State. I still am quite surprised the Broncos are drafting him because Russell Wilson has been really good over the last 2 years, leading Denver to multiple playoff appearances. But I guess they see Russell Wilson starting to get older and regressing. And with him being on the last year of his deal, maybe DeAndre Smith sits this year and ends up being the long-term quarterback next season and beyond. So that'll bring up the Tennessee Titans here with the 27th overall pick. We already moved back earlier, and I don't think we're going to do so with this pick. There's a player I really like who I don't think is going to fall to the second round, but I think is a really good fit for our roster. With the 27th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Asher Gonzalez, a linebacker from San Diego State. So Gonzalez will be the newest addition to the Tennessee Titans defense. He won numerous awards, being named the best defensive player in college football this past season. He only comes in with normal development, but I'm still really excited about this pick and where he projects into our defense. So as I said just a moment ago, he was the best defensive player in the country this year, and it really was not very close. Gonzalez can do literally everything. He's great in coverage. He's great in the run game. He's very solid as a pass rusher, and he led the NCAA in tackles this past season. I think he projects quite well to the next level because of his scheme versatility. You can put him in a 3-4. You can put him in a 4-3. He's got good size at 6'2", 240 pounds. He's got solid athleticism. He's not necessarily a freak, and he didn't test all that well at the combine, mainly because he was rehabbing from an injury he suffered in the bowl game. But, I mean, if you look at the numbers, they speak for themselves. 127 tackles this year, 34 for a loss, 9.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 5 pass deflections, 2 fumble forces, a defensive touchdown. Yeah, there's a reason why this kid was named the best defensive player in college football this past season. He did literally everything for the San Diego State defense, and we hope that he'll be able to make a similar impact here in Tennessee as he competes to be one of the starting off-ball linebackers next year. Gonzalez is going to come in as a 75 overall, but what I really like about him is that he's at least a 71 in every archetype for outside linebackers. That shows his versatility and the fact that he can do just about everything, which I think gives him a really high floor, and I'm very confident he's going to be a great player for our defense for years to come. That'll bring up the 49ers, and they select Dior Antoine, running back out of Rutgers. Dear God, why did we let this guy go to Kyle Shanahan? Antoine will come in as an 84 overall, the most dynamic and explosive playmaker in college football these last few seasons, finishing in the top 5 for the Heisman voting. Dior Antoine is a special talent. I really thought about drafting him, and now he is in a Kyle Shanahan offense. Do we just want to hand the Niners the Super Bowl now? That'll bring up the Philadelphia Eagles, who moved down all the way from 13, and they select running back Brody Klube out of Florida State. I'm not surprised to see them picking a running back from a Florida school, but I'm a little bit surprised that it's this one. I would have thought they would have selected Elijah Bryant out of Florida. Klube is not as well-rounded as a player as Elijah Bryant, but I do think he's a little bit more dynamic and explosive, so I see why the Eagles preferred Klube, and I think he's going to be a really fun player at the next level. The Steelers select Moses Munoz, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. In terms of rating and development trait, Munoz has a better combination of those two things than any offensive tackle drafted in the first round this year. So leave it to the Pittsburgh Steelers to get a total steal here at the end of round 1. The Minnesota Vikings select Mario Hummeler, the tight end out of TCU. So he'll be catching passes from Cade Hutchinson going forward. Hummeler's another player I really thought about drafting, but we just don't use tight end a whole lot in our offense, and I couldn't justify using a first-round pick on one. But I really like this pick from Minnesota. They've given Cade Hutchinson an elite offensive lineman and an elite tight end. So hats off to the Vikings. They're building this thing the right way. And to round out the first round, the Dallas Cowboys select Rashawn Russell, a linebacker out of Oklahoma. He's a little bit small, 6'1", 227 pounds, but I think he's certainly a talented player. Probably going to become one of their off-ball inside linebackers. I think that's really where he's going to suit on this defense, and I like his fit here with Dallas. So that'll wrap up the first round. A lot of excitement with 6 quarterbacks going off the board, tying a modern-era NFL record, including Cade Hutchinson going number 1. Bartholomew Blunt and Kane Sanders are now in our division as they join the Colts and Texans, respectively. And with our 2 picks, we trade down with one of them, and we select a linebacker, Asher Gonzalez, with the other. The Titans are right back on the clock here with the first pick in the second round, which they just got from the Minnesota Vikings. Keep in mind, the Titans now have 3 picks here in the second round and 4 of the next 33 selections. Still plenty of talent in terms of offensive playmakers on the board, a lot of good defensive backs as well. So with the 33rd pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Elijah Bryant, running back out of Florida. So Elijah Bryant will be joining the offense. When we initially moved down to get this pick, I was expecting Elijah Bryant to be gone in the late first round. I thought Brody Kluge was going to be the running back still available, and I would have been more than fine with taking him. But I think Elijah Bryant is an even better fit for our offense as he comes in with hidden development. Bryant is the perfect back for the modern NFL because of his ability on all three downs. He has been the engine of the Florida offense these past few seasons, leading them to the college football playoff, where he performed very well in all three of Florida's playoff games. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, big physical kid. You can let him put his head down and he will knock you over. He's maybe not as dynamic as, say, Dior Antoine or Brody Kluge, who were both picked in the first round, but those two guys are just rare in terms of their explosiveness. And that's not to take anything away from the very impressive explosiveness that Elijah Bryant holds. The thing I really like about his game is his ability to catch the football, whether it's on screens and his ability after the catch, or his ability to stretch the field vertically as a route runner. So because of that, he is not just going to be a running back for us. He's going to get snaps all over the offense. We're going to use him as a slot receiver. Maybe we'll even try him on the outside at times. This is a guy who's very efficient when he gets the ball in his hands. He's not a guy who's going to get 20 touches a game, but he's the type of player of when he gets the ball, he is a game changer. This does not change anything for Derrick Henry's role on the offense. I think these two players are going to really complement each other well, and eventually Bryant will hopefully be the running back of the future as Derrick Henry gets a little bit older. Bryant will come in as a 79 overall. He's a 79 as a receiving back as well as an elusive back. His ratings across the board look really, really good. Again, this is a guy who's super efficient whenever he gets the ball in his hands, and a guy who's going to line up at a bunch of different positions for us in the offense. So I'm really excited to use him as a versatile chess piece who can line up pretty much anywhere on the field, but regardless of where he lines up, he's going to make an impact with the football in his hands. That'll bring us to the Cardinals here, and they select D'Aiden Washington, the wide receiver out of Texas. A few years ago, he looked like a future top 10 pick, and as his collegiate career went along, he really started to get inconsistent, but he played well down the stretch this season. He's big, he's fast, he's athletic, and he's going to be the new number one receiver for Kyler Murray. That'll bring it to Miami Dolphins, and they select defensive back Johnny Lee Farr out of Florida. If all three running backs were gone by the time we got to the second round, I think Johnny Lee Farr would have been my backup plan. He's a really explosive and dynamic safety who made a lot of big plays this year for Florida, and he will be sticking in the Sunshine State as he heads down to South Beach to join the Dolphins. Keep in mind, now that we're out of the first round, we're not going to go over every pick in depth because we could be here for hours. The Dolphins get Chance Upshaw, an offensive tackle. The Colts add Jaleel Joholm to the defense. Donovan Bambo to Cleveland. I like that pick. Justin Osefu, the pass rusher out of Washington State, goes to the Bucks. Solomon Fa-Amate is a Raider. He'll be their left tackle. Chad Johnson to the Texans. He'll be their new tight end, giving Kane Sanders a big 6'7" weapon to throw the ball to. At Houston, Kane Sanders' favorite receiver was Kramer Gildeford, and the main reason why Sanders loved throwing him the ball was because Gildeford is 6'5". Kane Sanders loves big physical receivers, and that's exactly what Chad Johnson is. Ebenezer Rosen to the Dolphins, their third pick in the second round. Jabari Towns to the Panthers. We're starting to see some linebackers off the board. The top center is off the board with Berkeley going to the Raiders. Cornelius Jones to the Eagles. The Seahawks select Shai Jones-Porter, wide receiver out of Penn State. He's a really, really talented player, and I think he complements Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf very well. Not to mention they added Latrell McAllister in the first round. So the only question is who's going to be throwing them the damn ball, because currently it is still Sam Darnold. The Packers select Kobe Henderson, running back out of Clemson. I really like this pick. When Kobe Henderson is healthy, and that is a huge if, he is a dynamic playmaker, coming in as a 79 overall. With Aaron Jones on the final year of his contract and starting to get a little bit older, I think Jones is really going to start to phase out, and Kobe Henderson is going to start to phase in as the running back of the future in Green Bay. Gunnar Wilson, tight end out of Akron to the Bills. I really like that pick. Arthur Balthazar to the Jets. Caleb Kaufman of the Ravens. That's a great pick. In Oregon's 2 college football playoff games, Caleb Kaufman was locked down. He really improved his draft stock. I thought he was going to go earlier than this, to be honest, but the corners have kind of been slipping a little bit, so the Ravens take advantage. Hector Estrada III, wide receiver to the Eagles. He has a great combination of athleticism and production, and he's going to join a really fun offense that has already added Florida State running back Brody Kluby today. So look out for the Eagles. Quarterback Masaru Lee now has a ton of weapons. The Bengals get Javari Baker out of USC. This is an interesting pick because I thought he was going to go in the top 15. Yet he has made it to the middle of the second round. A raw but athletic edge rusher with a lot of upside. I really don't know why he fell, but the Bengals are not complaining. The Atlanta Falcons are up. Keep in mind, we're only a couple picks away, and they select Ace Legger-Jor, the safety from Texas A&M. I am mad at the Falcons right now because this is the player we were going to pick. So they pick-sniped us just a couple picks away from where we are. That's unfortunate because I think he could have been a great addition to our defense. He's a freak athlete, really tested well at the Combine as the Chargers get Ron McDevitt II out of Air Force. So that'll bring up the Titans here at the 23rd pick in the second round. I was going to pick Ace Legger-Jor, but thankfully I had a couple backup plans that we can go with. With the 23rd pick in the second round, the Tennessee Titans select R.J. Robinson, linebacker out of Virginia Tech. Robinson is a very unique physical profile. He's 6 foot, 247 pounds, but he's a really impressive athlete despite being built like a tank. I think with his athleticism and size, the upside is sky high as he comes in with a hidden development. I think he's got a higher long-term ceiling than Asher Gonzalez does, but I think he's got a much lower floor, and he's got a ways to go until he gets consistent snaps on the defense. I think he will eventually be a starter one day. I think he's got the work ethic to do it. He's a hard-working, high-character kid. He's a really smart person, which I think goes to his advantage being the middle linebacker, the quarterback of the defense. But the fact of the matter is, he's just raw. He's pretty new to the position, a converted running back coming out of high school, and it makes sense because physically he is built like a running back. I think he's got some really good long-term upside as a run defender and in coverage, but he still needs to improve in both areas. He really improved in coverage this year, which I think is certainly a very positive sign. He picked off 2 passes. He had a career high in pass deflections. But he's just a little bit raw, and that's fine. We have plenty of depth at linebacker, but not a lot of guys who I think can be stars. So that's why I'm intrigued with Robinson. He can learn behind the scenes for a little bit and hopefully become the middle linebacker of the future, coming in as a 70 overall with hidden development. Again, he's pretty versatile. He is good in terms of a field general, pass coverage, or run-stopping archetype with 90 speed and 92 acceleration. So he's got the athletic profile. It's really just about building up his ability and consistency in coverage while continuing to improve in the run game and maybe as a pass rusher as well. We have another pick coming up as New England selects Noel Hilaire, running back out of Oregon. Hilaire has been the engine of the Ducks offense, and he's going to join forces with Damian Harris to be a really nice 1-2 punch going forward in New England. I really like the Patriots draft so far. I think they've done very well for themselves. The Philadelphia Eagles select Sean Smith, guard from Georgia, and the Denver Broncos get Blitz Dixon, a pass rusher out of Rutgers. So that'll bring the Titans back onto the board. There's another player who I really like in this range, and I think the board continues to play out quite well for us. With the 27th pick in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Evan Smith, offensive tackle out of Penn State. Smith comes in at 6'5", 360 pounds. He's got the size and length you look for at offensive tackle. He tested quite well at the Combine, and his collegiate production is really impressive. He checks all the boxes for what you look for at the offensive tackle position, so I'm really not sure why he wasn't a first-round pick. He has been one of the best tackles in the country the last few years while consistently improving for Penn State. I mean, look at this rep against a talented pass rusher for North Texas. He's good in the pass game. He's good in the run game. He's only allowed 10 sacks in his 3 years as a starter. And I think with his size and athleticism, he's got a really high ceiling. He will compete with Nick Petit-Frere to be the starting right tackle this season, but I think in the long term, Smith is going to be the guy, and maybe if Andrew Thomas doesn't work out, he could possibly be the long-term left tackle, coming in as a 76 overall. What a total steal in the back end of the second round. Again, I have no clue why he wasn't a first-round pick. I think he's a fantastic prospect. I just think evaluators overthought him. That'll bring us to the Niners, who add Raymar Beckett to the defense. The Cardinals, with their second rounder of the day, get DeAndre Herring. The Steelers pick Kayshawn McDaniels, running back out of Texas A&M. He'll be a nice compliment to Najee Harris. The Chiefs get the Jim Thorpe Award winner, Costello Benedetto. And the Bengals get center, Brian Forrest Smith. So that'll wrap up the second round. Pretty eventful for us as we end up with 3 new players: Elijah Bryant, R.J. Robinson, and Evan Smith. Overall, I think we hit a slam dunk in the second round with 3 new hidden development rookies, despite our plans kind of getting spoiled a little bit with Ace Legerdor going off the board, and then late in the first round, Dior Antoine and Brody Kluby getting drafted. As it stands now, we have 1 more pick in every round, including the top pick in the third round. So we've got another opportunity to add a new piece to the team. With the 65th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Carlisle Kaplan, a center out of the University of Oregon. Unfortunately, he only has normal development, but I still really like this pick. Kaplan is 6'4", 344 pounds. He tested well at the Combine, and he was voted on as the best center in college football last year. Part of the reason why the Oregon offense, particularly their run game, was so good was because of their great offensive line. I think all 5 of their starters could be future pros, and that includes Carlisle Kaplan, who will likely compete with Sekou Bateau for the starting left guard spot. I think Kaplan's size and athleticism gives him the versatility to play center or either guard spot. Again, the production off the charts. 4-year starter for the Ducks. Very good, very smart player. Eric McCoy is only signed for 1 more year, so if the Titans let him go, presumably Kaplan probably would be the starting center next year and going forward. So although he only has normal development, it's not necessarily a glamorous pick or a fun pick, but you got to build up the offensive line, and I think Carlisle Kaplan is going to be a really, really good player when it's all said and done. I think chances are he probably does not win the starting left guard spot this year, so he'll be like our number 6 offensive lineman, and our offensive line was quite banged up last year, so if that proves to be the case again, then Kaplan's probably still going to play a lot. He comes in as a 74 overall. This guy has a lot of power and a lot of quickness for his size. He's really well-rounded. There aren't any weaknesses to his game in the pass or the run. He's really good in both areas, so I think he's going to be very good. The Cardinals get George Charbonnet II out of Idaho, talented pass rusher. The Dolphins get Kyle McCloskey, running back out of Alabama, tough, physical runner. Pair him up with the recently signed Cam Akers, and the Dolphins have themselves a nice running back duo for their new quarterback, Jalen Hurts. So that's going to be a really nice pick for the Dolphins. And then the Los Angeles Chargers pick a quarterback, Margot Burnley, out of the Ohio State University. So Burnley is the first quarterback taken here on day 2. Justin Herbert has not been signed to an extension yet, so if the Chargers don't, which would be a surprise, then maybe Burnley is going to be a long-term backup option for Herbert. The Colts get Micah McClure from Mississippi State. Chase Carlson goes to the Browns. Daniel Price to the Bears. Markeith Brown to the Eagles. DeAndre Clark, now in our division, to Houston. Deuce Johnson to the Jags. That's a great pick. Adam Kroger to the Panthers. Tamamase Tuumbampea to Washington. The Eagles add to the offensive line with Kenny Brewer. Did the Seahawks pick a quarterback here? They don't. Again, they pick Sean DeLoach. Amari Sanders to the Packers. Tyrese Barracon, wide receiver out of Texas, to the Bills. Barracon was given a pretty bad hand in his collegiate career. He was never a featured receiver. He missed most of his junior season with an injury, and he always had bad quarterback play. But I think he's going to be a really good slot receiver in the NFL. And if you talk about team and player pairing, like a perfect match, that's Tyrese Barracon in Buffalo. He's going to slide right into the slot and be a stud. Jordan Jones goes to the Jets. He's big, he's fast, and that's it. He is only a 65 overall. The Jets were drafting for upside here, but the problem is he only has normal development. But on the bright side, he has 98 speed and he's 6'4". So we'll see how they use that size and speed in their receiving corps. Their in-state rivals, the New York Football Giants, select Joshua Calico, the pass-catching back out of Michigan State. Otter Poole to the Saints. The Bengals get Derek Davis. Atlanta gets K.L. Hamp. Really like that pick out of Michigan. Jack Jones to the Chargers. And then look at this. The Bucs get Sterling Yorkshire, quarterback out of TCU. The college football playoff MVP will compete with Jordan Love to be the starting quarterback in Tampa Bay. I really like this fit for Sterling Yorkshire, a young man who seemingly came out of nowhere as a one-year starter for TCU, leads them to the playoff, wins the playoff MVP, and now will be a third rounder to the Bucs, one of the biggest overall draft risers of the year. And then New England picks a QB, Jose Alvaro. Mac Jones is not on a long-term extension, and he's not all that spectacular of a player anyway, so maybe they let Mac Jones go, and maybe Jose Alvaro is the quarterback of the future in Foxborough. The Lions finally, with their first pick of the day, get Gaston Millard, Jeremy Hart to the Broncos, Travis Talignan to the Lions, Spencer Gotham, that's a nice pick, to the Niners. The Lions are up again. They get Kalamawai, the defensive tackle, to Louisville, Morales to the Steelers, and then Latavius Merrington goes to the Chiefs. Obviously, they have Patrick Mahomes as a total stud, but I guess they hope that Merrington, coming locally from Missouri, can be a really good backup. He's an explosive enough athlete to where maybe you can line him up at other positions on the offense. He is also 25 years old for what it's worth, so he's kind of a wild card, but I do like him. Dallas rounds out the third round with Jeremy Easterberg out of Alabama. So that'll wrap up the third round. The Titans pick Carlisle Kaplan from Oregon. A lot of quarterbacks going off the board. I believe we had 4 after none were picked in the second round. So that is 10 QBs who have been taken in the first 3 rounds. That's a lot. That'll bring us into the fourth round now. The Titans with the 12th pick in this round. Still a lot of really good players. T.K. Thomas, the wide receiver out of Michigan, has not been picked yet. That's a big surprise. There's plenty of really good receivers here. Salid, Morris, Drame, Crew. So many really good receivers down the board. They're all falling. And there's plenty of other really solid players here at the top in day 3 as well. I think a lot of these guys are ultimately going to outperform their draft slots, such as running back Patalomayo Malawalu going off the board to the Vikings. This is a great pick for Minnesota. Malawalu was the college football playoff MVP a couple years ago when he was a junior, and he comes in as an 81 overall. If we didn't draft Elijah Bryant, I was going to target Malawalu in this round, so it kind of works out because Malawalu would not have been available for me to pick. So he joins Cade Hutchinson in the backfield in Minnesota. That'll bring us to the Cardinals now at the second pick in the round. They get Dominic Alexander. The Dolphins with back-to-back picks get Alex Sarkisian, the tackle out of Georgia, and then follow that up here with Kason Schofield from South Carolina. Colts get Raphael Cunningham. The Texans get Osmond Chetwood, a local kid from SMU. The Bears get Mutumba Afolabe. He played very well for TCU in the college football playoff. Anthony Raymond of the Raiders. He'll be a nice compliment to Josh Jacobs. Dominique Weatherford to the Texans. Quincy Murphy, the big power back out of Alabama, goes to the Jags. And Luca Franco, quarterback, off the board to the Panthers. So that'll bring us here to the 12th pick in the fourth round for the Tennessee Titans. There are still plenty of really good players on the board here. T.K. Thomas still has not been picked. I don't think we've had any receivers off the board yet here in the fourth round. But ultimately, the Titans are not going to keep this pick. They're going to move back 7 spots with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Titans will acquire the Bucs' 7th rounder as well. The player the Bucs are going to trade up for is wide receiver Rashid Salid out of Virginia Tech. I have a feeling Sterling Yorkshire is going to really enjoy throwing this kid the ball. 97 speed, 98 acceleration at 6'2". This guy has unbelievable explosiveness and hopes to be the long-term wide receiver 1 in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin both gone. The Eagles get Wallace Lee Anderson from Oregon. Seattle gets the other Georgia running back, Keith Humphrey. And then moving down the board a little bit, Ernest Vaughn goes to the Bills. He's like a 76 overall. Quarterback Jeffrey McCoy out of Nebraska to the Jets. That's a very fascinating pick. Justin West stays in Louisiana from LSU to the Saints. And then getting to our pick, the final selection is Corey Clifford, linebacker out of Pitt. So that'll bring us here to the 23rd pick in the fourth round. We move back 11 spots, and the guy I would have picked with our last selection is still on the board. With the 23rd pick in the fourth round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Bryson Byrne, quarterback out of the University of Alabama. So for the first time in this series, we are drafting a QB. Is Bryson Byrne going to be the franchise quarterback? Maybe not, but I'm very intrigued by this young man as he comes in with hidden development. Bryson Byrne was dealt a bad hand. He missed most of the year with an injury. He played really well in the bowl game against Missouri. And then this is the play right here in week 2 where he gets hurt against Akron. So these highlights you're going to see are from his junior season last year. Bryson Byrne has always been in a bad situation at Alabama because the Crimson Tide have a run-first offense with an absolutely horrible offensive play caller. So Bryson Byrne's numbers are not going to look all that great, but some of the throws he makes is really, really impressive. I think he's got good accuracy despite a pretty low completion percentage throughout his collegiate career. I just think he needs to do a better job of reading defenses, which is sort of a similar concern that the Titans had with Malik Willis, a guy who's pretty accurate but needs to do a better job of reading the situation around him. Bryson Byrne has similar arm talent, in my opinion, to Malik Willis, and he has a solid ability as a runner. He's been kind of forced to run a lot, playing for an Alabama team who uses an option-styled offense. So you put him in a pro-styled offense like the Titans, and I think he could really flourish. Byrne will start his career as a 69 overall. Nice. He will likely not compete with Malik Willis to be the starting quarterback this year, but he's going to kind of be there to light a fire under Malik Willis, and if Willis does struggle, we're not going to be afraid to bench him for a guy like Bryson Byrne, who, although he's got a ways to go, I think there's a chance he could be the long-term starting quarterback here, especially with his hidden development. So a major splash here in the 4th round for the Titans, adding a quarterback with Alabama's Bryson Byrne. Let's wrap up the rest of the 4th round now. The Broncos with a solid pick at guard, McCallum from Tennessee. The Vikings pick another Tennessee player, Adam Royal out of Oregon to the Niners. Drondo Shalk, great pick, guard out of Ole Miss to the Lions. Marcus Bowling, defensive tackle from USC, is a total steal to the Chiefs. And then Josh Cook to New Orleans. So that'll wrap up the 4th round. A lot of big names off the board, including Georgia running back Patolomayo Molowalu to the Minnesota Vikings. And of course, the Titans with a shocker, moving down and then selecting a quarterback with Bryson Byrne out of the University of Alabama, who will be Malik Willis's backup to start the year and possibly could be the franchise quarterback if he develops. That'll bring us into the 5th round. T.K. Thomas, amongst others, still on the board. Who could have guessed that? The Titans have 4 more picks to go. In the trade we made with the Bucs, we got an additional 7th, keep in mind. Bubu Kuyatse, the other Ole Miss guard, to Minnesota. Jonathan Mulaney to the Cardinals. Keontae Sparks is a nice pick to the Dolphins. Moving down the board a little bit, Afework Chike to the Browns. That's a fun pick. Chike's built like a wide receiver. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. He's fast. He's athletic. I hope the Browns use him like we're going to use Elijah Bryant, as a guy who can get the ball out of the backfield and out wide as a receiver. I know it's a common theme that these running backs are very highly rated. This is a loaded running back class. Evan Baker, wide receiver out of Michigan, to the Washington Commanders. He's another guy who's big and fast, and that's it. This is a very confusing pick because T.K. Thomas, his Michigan teammate, was right on the board. T.K. Thomas is big and fast and good. So when Washington was watching film on Evan Baker, did they not notice T.K. Thomas, who's bigger, faster, and better? That just doesn't make sense to me. T.K. Thomas has to have some kind of issue with him as to why he's slipping. It can't be a coincidence anymore. There's got to be some red flag out there that has come out about him. Michael Winters to Houston. Grant Hogsflesh, that's a great pick going to the Jaguars. Harrison Anderson, another really good pick to Carolina. He's like a 77 overall. Going down the board a little bit, getting pretty close to our pick, Cody Harris to the Packers. Now we're drafting fullbacks. How is T.K. Thomas still on the board? This is ridiculous. Maurice Spence to the Ravens. He had a great college football playoff. Ezekiel Uwazurike to the Cowboys. That's a nice pickup. Dante Williams to the Chargers. Quay Valentine to the Texans. Getting very close to our pick now as John Turk goes to the Broncos. So we are on the board now at the 27th pick in the 5th round. T.K. Thomas is still on the board along with a bunch of other notable receivers. So do we bite the bullet or do we go elsewhere? With the 27th pick in the 5th round, the Tennessee Titans select Alexander Ekwueme, defensive tackle out of LSU. So rather than going for one of the falling receivers, the Titans add to the defensive line with Ekwueme, who I think is a pretty fascinating player. He's listed as a defensive tackle, but I think in our scheme, he's going to be more of a defensive end. 6'5", 275 pounds. He profiles with his size and athleticism to be a 3-4 defensive end. So I think with that quick position change, he'll be a really good fit on our offense. Ekwueme's been a little bit inconsistent throughout his career at LSU, largely because they've used him as their nose tackle when that's not really where his strengths are. Maybe if he was 50 or 60 pounds heavier and a little more dominant in the run game, I could see that. I think with his finesse and power moves, there's a chance he could be a decent pass rusher down the line as he comes in as a 71 overall. The Titans do not have a lot of depth on the defensive line, so this is a player who I think, if he performs well in the preseason, really could see some early playing time, and hopefully he can continue to improve as a pass rusher and really fit into our defense, contrary to his fit at LSU. Rounding out the rest of the 5th round, Braylon Clark and Dallas Douglas, a couple of Oklahoma offensive linemen, go off the board. Anthony Whitley Grant to the Chiefs, and Dallas gets Lyle Callaghan, another former TCU defensive player. So a pretty quiet 5th round for the most part. The Titans add to the defensive line with Alexander Ekwueme out of LSU. And that'll bring us into the 6th round. The Titans have the pick coming up with the 2nd pick in the round. All of these wide receivers are still on the board. It's only a matter of time until they're going to get picked, right? You've got to think some of these guys in particular, TK Thomas, are going to go off the board. That'll start with Minnesota, and they select PJ Pembeck out of Louisville. So with the 2nd pick in the 6th round of the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select wide receiver Quinn Crew out of Texas A&M. So before we talk about Crew, I want to explain why I'm not picking TK Thomas. He was projected to go in the top 50, and there's a reason why he's fallen off the board. So I would just rather not avoid whatever drama that could entail, and instead go with a kid I really like in Quinn Crew, who I think is slipping more so because of the depth at wide receiver in this class, with a lot of other receivers in his range slipping as he comes in with hidden development. Crew declared for the draft after a really impressive redshirt sophomore season, and I think this is going to be a really good player in the next level, somebody who really should have gone on day 2. Crew possesses great explosiveness. He ran a 4.31 at the combine and a 4.24 at his pro day. Now, those pro day numbers can be a little bit inflated, but still, he is lightning fast. Along with that, he's a really solid route runner, he has decent hands, and he's really impressive after the catch. In his 2 years at Texas A&M, he caught 130 passes for 1,800 yards and 22 touchdowns. So you talk about consistent production as just a freshman and sophomore with 2 additional years of eligibility. I have no clue how he fell to the 6th round, other than that the other receivers are slipping too. Crew comes in as a 70 overall. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get super early on, but he's only 21 years old. And other than Scotty Piggins, I'm not really sold on anybody in the long term in our receiving core. Traylon Burke still has a lot to prove. Robert Woods is a fossil at this point, and McCole Hardman only has 1 more year left on his deal. So I certainly see a world where Quinn Crew could be one of our go-to receivers going forward in the future. So that'll bring up the Miami Dolphins now. They get Jordan Brown, the talented running back out of Georgia Tech. These receivers are still on the board. This is unbelievable, an unprecedented fall for a specific position group led by TK Thomas, who I thought had a chance to go in the 1st round. Kelechi Green, that's a fun pick to Carolina. Another fullback is off the board. We've had 2 fullbacks go before Thomas. Big Perk Thorncraw to Philadelphia, that's a cool pick. Jameson Gray to Green Bay, I like that selection for the Packers. And then getting through the rest of the 6th round, finally a wide receiver. Boo Boo Drame out of Northwestern, the Slim Reaper. 6'5", 178 pounds. He comes in as a 75 overall. So he really had no business slipping. Like Quinn Crew, both Crew and Drame were projected to go in a similar range in like the 3rd round, and they both end up going in the 6th round. What a steal by the Baltimore Ravens. Kobe Davis is off the board. There's Xavier Mayo, another receiver. Maybe not the receiver I expected to go off the board here, but this is still a really good pick. Xavier Mayo was awesome in the college football playoff for Clemson. He consistently outproduced his teammate, Jordan Jones, who went in the 3rd round to the Jets. And Xavier Mayo really should have gone a lot higher, but with all these other receivers slipping, that's causing some of the day 3 receivers to slip even further and possibly get undrafted. Rounding out the rest of the round, Riley Novaw to the Bucks, Aaron Robinson to New England, a couple of really good running backs going off the board here. J.J. Brown out of Alabama to the Rams. Fat Buff from Central Michigan to the Bengals. He had 3 sacks in the conference championship game. Maker Bayfield to the Niners, and that brings us to the Lions, who get Torian Mason. So with all the receivers slipping, Torian Mason falling has kind of gone under the radar. He was projected as probably a 2nd-round pick. Only comes in as a 65, but he is hidden, and he's only 21 years old. Rounding out the rest of the round, Justin Outlaw goes to the Chiefs, and Dallas gets Noah Pichette. So a very fascinating 6th round with Quinn Crew going to the Titans and only one other day 2 projected receiver being Boo Boo Drame coming off the board. So along with TK Thomas, you've got plenty of other really good receivers on the board still. Cassius Morris, Nehemiah Dalton Jr., amongst others here going into the 7th round. And we might need to talk about some of these guys going undrafted, possibly. The Titans own 2 picks in the 7th round, including the 4th pick along with the 23rd pick from the Bucs. A lot of really good players still here on the board. The Vikings get Kanan Dean from Alabama. So now teams are picking guys who have never started a game over TK Thomas. Kanan Dean has never started a linebacker in his Alabama career, but I still really wanted him on Tennessee because he's a total freak athlete. This guy completely blew up at the Combine, an unbelievable athlete. He was actually a basketball player for Alabama for a few years, really solid role player, and a special teamer on the football team, and the Vikings hope they can develop him with his athleticism into a really good player. I was hoping the Titans would be able to grab him with one of their 7th rounders, but unfortunately it's not to be. The Cardinals get a wide receiver, Shamir Cason, who's a 75 with hidden development. There's going to be some really high-rated receivers going off the board in this round, I would presume, because there's so many good ones still here, including Cason, who's a total stud. He should have been like a 3rd or 4th round pick. And then the Jaguars get Chris Robinson out of Virginia Tech. So that'll bring us to the Titans here at the 4th pick in the 7th round. TK Thomas, amongst others, is still on the board, but Tennessee did just draft a receiver. With the 4th pick in the 7th round, the Titans select Devontae Turner Jr., a linebacker out of Purdue. Devontae Turner Jr. is a very fascinating player because he's 6'4", 270 pounds. That's not, a normal build for an off-ball linebacker. I think Devontae Turner Jr. has the size and length of a prototypical edge rusher, and that's where we're going to use him at the next level. He has been completely misused by Purdue. I don't know why they haven't used him as more of a pass rusher because I think he would do really well in that role. He only has 2 sacks in his 2 years of playing at Purdue, but that's because most of his snaps see him going into coverage. He's a solid run defender, and I think he could really project well as a 3-4 outside linebacker in the Titans scheme. He tested pretty well at the Combine for somebody his size, so yeah, he's probably got a ways to go in terms of his pass rushing ability. But the fact of the matter is, Purdue completely misused him, and I think a player of his physical ability is totally worth a gamble here in the 7th round. If the Titans can convert him to edge, I think he could be really, really good in that role. So this is a very fascinating pick here in the final round of the draft for the Titans, who still have 1 more pick left. The Colts are now up, and finally, TK Thomas is off the board with the 5th pick in the 7th round. He's a 72 with hidden. He's not even bad. If he had gone in the 1st round, I wouldn't have really batted an eye. And now he is in our division. He's paired up with his college quarterback, Bartholomew Blunt. And clearly TK Thomas is out for revenge because he should have been off the board 6 rounds ago. Total steal here for the Colts, and now he's in our division. That's not ideal. The Browns get Gregory Ricks out of Ohio. The Bears get Jamison Tyson, quarterback out of Washington State. Kamani Battle out of TCU to the Raiders. He was a force in the national championship game. And then the Texans get Cassius Morris because, of course, they do. Cassius Morris was supposed to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He ends up going here in the 7th. And again, he really should have been a day 2 pick. He's a 75 overall. He's probably going to get playing time early on as a really talented weapon for Kane Sanders and the Texans offense. So, of course, it's our division rivals who are taking advantage of all the receivers falling off the board. The Panthers are going to do so as well with Nehemiah Dalton out of Middle Tennessee State. Really good player for the Blue Raiders. Jeremiah McDuffie, very athletic corner. He's raw, but he's got great upside going to the Chiefs. Austin Meadows out of Clemson to the Eagles. Robert Prince to Seattle. Kenneth McGill, that's a nice pick out of Middle Tennessee State, going to the Packers. Ryan Faison, one of the youngest players in the draft at just 20 years old, goes to the Buffalo Bills. Tyler Maxwell, another great receiver, phenomenal slot guy, he goes to the Jets. Nate Amazu to Baltimore. He had the game-clinching interception in the national championship. Only a few picks away, the Bengals get Ryan Williams, who led the NCAA in interceptions. Anthony Kendrickson, another really good slot receiver off the board to Atlanta. And then Brandon Whaley, the corner out of Arizona, goes to the Chargers. A lot of really, really good players going here in the 7th round. The amount of 70-plus overall players in this round is going to be remarkable when you see them. So this is our final pick of the day. There's one more player on the board who I really like, and I think is going to be a total steal, somebody who should have been picked 3 rounds ago. With the 23rd pick in the 7th round, the Tennessee Titans select Hot Rod Pryor, wide receiver out of the University of Southern California. Going into the draft, I was 100% set on drafting Hot Rod Pryor, but in like the 4th round, he is still on the board here with just 10 picks to go, and it's not his fault. It's because all of these teams have been waiting on picking receivers until now. Pryor comes in with a hidden development, a remarkable talent here for the 7th round. This guy is a game changer with the football. He's a little bit inconsistent, which is why he wasn't really looked at as a day 1 or day 2 receiver. Needs to improve as a route runner, needs to improve his hands, but he's athletic, he's got good size, and with the ball in his hands, he is a total weapon. He's fast, he's explosive, he's dynamic, and if you look at his stats, he has improved in a very linear and consistent way, which is not a bad thing at all. He's the youngest player at the draft at only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until October. So with his age and ability, I think he could be a total steal in the 7th round. He's going to come in as a 69 overall. Nice. And as we talked about with Quinn Crew earlier, other than Scotty Pickens, there isn't anybody on the Titans receiving core who I'm set as being a long-term starter. So just like Quinn Crew, Hot Rod Pryor is going to have the same opportunity to show out in preseason, get some snaps in the regular season, maybe get some kick returning and punt returning duties, and eventually I could see him being a starting wide receiver for this team. Let's round out the 7th round. Vinny Will, another great slot receiver to New England because the Patriots love their white slot receivers. Got some corners going off the board here. D'Anthony Ford to the Raiders, that's a fun pick. Savion Shores, great value selection out of Georgia Tech to the 49ers. The Lions get Tyreek Story. Now all the receivers are going off the board. Mike Jack to Pittsburgh, Jamison Watson to the Texans. And that brings us to the end of the draft with one more pick to go. Still a ton of really good players. There's some fantastic undrafted free agents. Who's going to be Mr. Irrelevant to the Bengals? It's going to be quarterback Romano Fargnoli out of Syracuse. A few years ago, I thought for sure he was going to be a high draft pick, but he didn't play all that well down the stretch in his Syracuse career. But he's going to be a good backup for Joe Burrow. Maybe he has a similar career trajectory to former Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. So as you can see here, a lot of 70-plus players, a lot of really good receivers. Well, everybody waited until the 7th round because there were so many good receivers in this draft. Everybody had the same strategy of, we might as well wait. And you know what? It worked out. The losers in this situation are all of these receivers who signed sucky contracts, but hey, at least they ended up getting drafted. So there you go. That wraps up the NFL draft. I thought we did really well. We end up with 10 new rookies, a lot of high-impact players on both sides of the ball. All of these guys are going to have to earn their roles. None of them are going to be set starters right away. But we now have 6 new hidden development players. That is a lot. So as we wrap up today's video, I want to go over the schedule real quick because we've got some really fun games early in the season, including facing off against some rookie quarterbacks. In Week 1, we face off against the Houston Texans, Kane Sanders' NFL debut, and then the following week, we get a look at Bartholomew Blunt with the Indianapolis Colts. We have 3 primetime games, including Monday night against the Steelers in Week 5, an opportunity at revenge. We play the defending champion Cowboys in Week 6. We have a Week 12 bye week. We play Clyde Williamson and the Lions in Week 13. Week 14, Thursday night football against the Bills. Week 16, Sunday night football against New England. Week 17, we get a look at the number 1 pick, Cade Hutchinson. And then we wrap up at home against Bartholomew Blunt and the Colts. I'm really excited about Season 3. There's so many fun young players around the league. So many young fun players on our roster. So I think it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to put a poll up on the community tab asking whether you guys would like for a preseason live stream this week or if you'd rather we jump right into the regular season. I did this last season and overwhelmingly everyone wanted to jump into the regular season, so I figured that's probably what would win again. But with all of these fun rookies we drafted, maybe we want to take a look at them in a preseason stream. So let me know what you think about that down below in the comments along with in the community tab. So that's going to wrap up the episode. Wow, what a video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. As you guys know, these draft videos take a ton of time for me to put together, but it's always really rewarding seeing you guys enjoy them. Peace out. Tighten up.